Hey. What's going on? So let's see. It says here, I gained weight. Here's why I'm okay with that. Because it's easier. Building up your self-esteem based on your current circumstance is easier than changing it for a better result. Because that requires work. An unhappy history. I've always known that I was fat. Well, obviously, wherever you were, there you are. Of course you would know. Who else would know you're fat besides you? It's harder getting up. You take up more space. Your clothes are tighter. Hallways just seem a little bit smaller. And when you're talking to people, they just feel like their presence are just a little bit more compact. So if anyone should know that you're fat, it should be you. If you don't know you're fat, then you're delusional because everyone has a mirror. In fact, people see themselves every day. Unless they never take a shower or do any kind of self-care. While in retrospect, I suppose I've mostly been on the chubby side of average. That means fat. You wouldn't know it from the feedback I got from friends and family. Of course, because they're lying to you. They care about your feelings, not about helping you, because they can't really help you if you don't listen to them. So they have to care about your feelings first. And if you give them an opportunity to be honest to you, to tell you that you need to change some things, they would immediately take it. They would immediately say, well, now that you mention it, you have put on a couple pounds. As a child, I once informed my friend that I wasn't invited to help them deliver newspapers because her mom worried that I was too chubby to climb over the back seat quickly enough. That's a weird circuit. Why would you quickly have to climb over the back seat to deliver newspapers? Didn't they stop to deliver the newspapers? They probably just didn't like you. My little brothers would taunt me with the word fat whenever we fought. That's not a taunt. They just noticed that you're fat. And there wasn't anything else to say except that you're fat. And then the next day, they'll notice, oh, you're still fat. So they kept kept saying it. People keep mentioning problems when they don't change. Yeah. For instance, if someone is ugly, they will notice that people keep telling them they're ugly every day that they're ugly because it didn't change. When my mother was really angry, she would too, which especially hurt because I knew she also considers herself a failure for the fat on her body. She was also fat, but she hated you more than herself. My grandmother, who also started these conversations with, you know, I love you, right? I said it. As soon as you give them an opportunity, they're going to mention it because it's a problem. Would tell me that I would be beautiful and happier if I could just lose some weight like my cousin Rihanna had. Grandma said it because she cared about you. I just want you to be happy. Exactly. She cared about you. She knew you weren't happy with being fat. You were just fat because you wanted to be happy. And eating delicious food is easier than working on yourself. When you're not happy with, it's easier to. What is going on with the microphone? Am I back? There we go. Damn it. Oh my God. Well, she's not bad looking, but she is basic. And yeah, she's done a lot of damage to her body. Oh, Lord. Reflecting on my image, when a woman spends too much time looking in the mirror, we call it narcissism. No, we don't. Call it insecurity. When a woman makes everything about herself, that's when we call it narcissism. Intellectuals may remind us that the word comes from the Greek myth about the hunter Narcissus, a beautiful young man. Oh, that was a woman who fell in love with his own reflection, who couldn't drag himself away from admiring himself in the pool of water. Even for long enough to take a drink of water, he died from his self fixation. That's called mental illness. That's why it's not admired when people are narcissists, because it's a mental illness. What people don't realize about us mirror lookers is that, unlike narcissists, our gaze isn't always one of admiration. For most of my life, mine hasn't been. Of course, it hasn't been. I'd look at the bulge coming from my abdomen, wishing it was flatter. And that's why grandma said what she did. I look at the curves on my body, wishing they could collapse in on themselves. They can. Just eat less. I fantasize about taking scissors and chopping off the embarrassing. Oh my God. That's mental illness. That's self-harm. You don't want to do that. I'll take an inventory of the rest of it, seeing if any other body part was turning against me and not turning against you. Your body is running out of places to store fat. As women, we've been told that beauty means looking like the people we see in magazines. What? By who? Who's saying that? That doesn't even sound like a normal conversation, so I know you're lying. As women, you might think that because you want the attention of those women in the magazines. You want to be those women in the magazines, but no one is telling you that you have to look like them, because you don't look like them. And you're not that important that people feel the need to have conversations with you about what other people are doing. You know, the ones who have the help of teams of stylists before shoots and teams of photo editors after the shoot, but they're also naturally attractive. Even without all of that work, they're still better looking than you. And they also put in work with it too. They don't eat themselves into a bigger body. We walk around carrying weight of our failure to live up to that ideal. But that's not living up to an ideal. Failure is not living up to the ideal. It's exactly the definition of not living up to the ideal. I spent most of my life carrying around that failure. Yes, because you failed. Of course, the way we feel about ourselves impact how we act and how we think. Exactly. You feel depressed about yourself. That's why you keep eating, because it's comfortable. It makes you feel better. But then the results, regrettable. Well, I never bought diet books, those I could just borrow from my mother. Walk around feeling unworthy meant that even buying healthy food or new flattering clothes was an attempt to distract myself from my shame. You'd think maybe that after gaining 25 pounds, I felt worse about myself. Those mirror sessions, God, you might as well have a drink. Look at you. Look how happy you are. You have a drink, you eat some food, the happiness, the chemicals just explode in your brain and you feel good. But then everything slows down and you're at home and you look in the mirror and you think to yourself, isn't that what I want to look like? but you feel trapped because the things you have to do to lose the weight is just not, it's not going to make you happy. It's actually going to make your situation worse because you're already depressed. The last thing you need is to make it worse. So you're trapped. It's terrible. You hate that feeling. But you have to reach a certain point in your life where you've just reached the bottom. And doing the work is actually a more pleasant idea than continuing to do what you're doing. And that's the only time you would change. Or you can just get comfortable with the idea that you just look like this. And if other people tell you the same thing, I started a YouTube channel called Fat Girl Eating. Oh, God. Over brazenly calling myself fat on the internet. Fat is a loaded word. It is not a loaded word. It is a descriptor. When people call their cat fat, they say it affectionately because it is a description of their cat, but they don't feel that it's a loaded word or they're embarrassing their cat because the cat doesn't care. The reason it feels like a loaded word because you care. You don't want to be fat. Maybe I'm older and crankier, but now I choose to not assess my worth based on who finds me beautiful. That's impossible. Because the thing is, most likely you're not interesting. Because if you were interesting, you would have more friends and people would have more positive things to say about you, and you would feel more positive about yourself, and you would probably lose the weight. Because if you're happy already, the thought of losing weight is not that daunting. If you're funny, you'd also be interesting. But you have nothing else going for you. And you have nothing else going for you. The least you can do is be attractive, because you see plenty of women who are also in your same situation, who are not interesting, who are not funny, but at least they're pretty and they get a lot of attention. And people want to be around them and people want to listen to what they have to say. And you want that. You want that treatment. But you don't get it. So you have nothing else. So it's not that your self-worth is based on what other people think of you. Is that your feelings about yourself can be improved by what other people think of you. And you want that. But you can't have it. So you've convinced yourself that it's better if you just don't care what other people think of you. Just like you convince yourself that as long as you're eating delicious food, that you're happy. You're prone to doing things out of impulse without thinking about the future. Or if you're thinking about the future, it makes you depressed and you no longer want to think about it. Delusion is not a better option to the reality of your situation. So, until next time.